Hello, and welcome to the Ready, Set, K Kindergarten Readiness Training for the Kindergarten Readiness Study. This is part 2 of the study, and we hope that you'll join us today and learn more about Ready, Set, K. So, what is Ready, Set, K? It's essentially a guide designed to assist teachers by providing a definition of what is kindergarten readiness, a clear understanding of the different assessment strategies, and a set of response to intervention strategies to help children build skills. We're going to, in this session, review what Ready, Set, K is, plan observations and work samples, understand what the data is telling us, and learn how to enter the data. So, as you may recall from part 1, we read 7 Blind Mice and discovered that many different people can have a different vision of what a thing is. But when we put all that information together, we have a well-rounded idea of what we're looking at for kindergarten readiness. And when we look at a child, we don't want to take just one part of the child and look at them. We want to look at children in the whole and have a more comprehensive view of how we work with and help children. So, knowing a part may make a fine tale, but wisdom comes from seeing the whole. And we hope that Ready, Set, K can help you pull all your data together, your report cards, your beginning of the year scores, your interactions with children, and really understand what that child needs to be successful in school. All right, so you've had some time with Ready, Set, K from part 1 to kind of get your opinions. I want you to take just a moment and perhaps pause the video to think about what Ready, Set, K is and what it is not. All right, hopefully you've taken a few minutes. A lot of folks say Ready, Set, K is something that you do every day with kids and is not a standard pull-out assessment. It's not just looking at a piece of a child, but looking at that whole child. But it's also a holistic way of assessing without stopping. So we want to look at it in terms of really looking at a common language. A lot of teachers doing this assessment, but having a common idea. And really capturing that teacher wisdom and depth of knowledge about children. Because this is something that's missing from a lot of assessments, and when it's missing, children don't have necessarily the whole benefit of being able to really have the action of the teacher make a difference, because the teacher doesn't necessarily see one individual assessment needing action. But when you look at the child as a whole, you can really see. So what we want to do is really look at that competencies and expectations. The language and the expectations is what you are rating kids on. And we also want to make sure that we're looking at the response to intervention continuum of progress. So, thinking about Ready, Set, K and looking at the examples that we have, teachers have shared their best practices idea for gathering, organizing, and utilizing the evidence from observations and assessments. What we know is that taking a moment, understanding what the standard is before you start observations can really help. Identifying and pinpointing places in your lesson plans where observations would be a good idea, would be beneficial, and having a way to make sure you are assessing every child with observations. So whether it's a checklist of kids that you're making sure that you're checking off, using Post-it notes or address labels to keep track of those observations and putting them in a portfolio type system, or using apps such as Evernote or Seesaw to keep track of that information in terms of your observations on children. So let's look at the mathematics competency of assessing for small number recognition. The 9th week or pre-K and beginning of kindergarten expectation is the child verbally identifies in up to 3 seconds without counting the number of objects in a set or pictorial representation, like dot cards or tally marks, of any quantity up to 5. So let's look at this on the continuum of progress scale. For a focus, the child does not demonstrate the current 9 weeks expectation. This could be lack of exposure or limited understanding, which warrants further investigation. 2, the child can perform the outcome with intensive one-on-one teacher assistance and supported peers. The child's ready for practice and instruction. 3, the child demonstrates the outcome independently with only occasional minor support from the teacher, and the expectation is set and ready for application. 4, the child goes beyond the targeted expectation and can begin working towards the next 9-week expectation or kindergarten expectations. So, as we've said before, there is a large range between a 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you want to think about children's independence. Most teachers, when they look at this, think about ways in which they can assess children on this standard that all have to do with one-on-one questioning or pull-out assessment. But I want you to take a moment and just kind of reflect how you might do this without doing a pull-out assessment. You can pause the video and then continue on. If you look at the strategies, assessment strategies in the Ready, Set, K guide, you can see that the strategies have ways that you can assess kids without pull-out assessment. So observe children as they rummage and sort through a collection of objects at the manipulative or science center. As the children make groupings, ask them to describe how many are in each category. Take note of the quantity and if they quickly identify groups without counting each object in the set. There are also awesome YouTube videos on subitizing, different ways that you can get kids engaged with this, but playing dice games with kids, dominoes with kids, watching kids play games and quickly do it. There are even some iPad games that are collaborative that you can play and have kids look and guess the number very quickly of matching the numeral to the number of dots. So remember, it doesn't always have to be a pullout to be able to get that information you need, and you can save yourself a lot of time and have what could look like one-on-one testing really look like a game, which is so totally the goal for kindergarten. All right, let's look at another one. This is social emotional domain of self-regulation. The fourth 9 weeks of pre-K and beginning of kindergarten expectation is the child has internalized classroom transitions and rules and consistently adheres to them as a way to regulate his or her own behavior during teacher-led or child-initiated activities. Child frequently refers to these rules or transitions to help other children or peers when they fail to comply. So again, we're looking at that continuum of progress scale on focus, get ready, set, and go. And it's the same scale no matter what competency that you're looking at or expectation you're looking at. But we do have to pay attention to those definitions of unobserved, occasionally, typically, frequently, and consistently. So let's look at that. A child has internalized classroom transitions and rules and consistently. So that's pretty high standard, 90% of the time, adheres to them as a way to regulate his or her own behavior in teacher-led or child-initiated activities. Child frequently, so that's just 75% of the time, refers to these rules or transitions to help other children or peers when they fail to comply. And then how much are you helping these children meet the consistently and frequently guidelines? Is this one that's set? Is it get ready? Is this the child that's next to you the whole time because they are in focus? Think about how you would assess and the ways you would assess this particular guideline. Most teachers would say that to assess this guideline, they will probably be consciously using observation and looking for their kids on what they can do. This is a guideline begging for observation techniques. And it's important to pinpoint areas in the classroom where you're going to observe this type of behavior, probably circle time, transitions, and make sure that you're observing each and every child in your classroom. So the strategies in Ready, Set, K that you could look at in this is observing the child in different contexts. So there are the contexts that we're talking about, just to give you an idea of what you could look at and kind of consider. Talking about rules, separating from parents, following through on the transition signals, adapting to different rules outside the classroom. What is it like in music class, field trips, or on the bus? And explaining rules or routines to classmates. We know what that sounds like. All right. How are you going to collect this information? Let's look at the pacing guide. We want to make sure in Ready, Set, K in the back, after assessments, you will find a pacing guide. This would help you look at different aspects of it. And I know since you're doing this online, you don't necessarily have a partner, but I'd like you to take the time, perhaps pause this video, and think about how you plan to collect each of data points for the beginning of kindergarten expectation, so that so we make sure that each child has this information ready, so that you have it to reflect on when you're ready to fill out all the data for Ready, Set, K. So just take a moment, look at your pacing guide, and make your plan. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about the data from Ready, Set, K. So when we look at the data that comes in from Ready, Set, K, your class will have an average for each of the competencies that you are monitoring. This classroom average can give you some information about how your class is doing as a whole, on average, with these competencies. And I want you just to take a moment and reflect on, what do you see? What does this data tell us? What does it not tell us? And how you might use this data to inform your class. When teachers have reflected on this data, they uniformly notice that children's development isn't completely smooth across the board, and definitely not in a class. This classroom needs to build up competency and skill in language and communication. We see that of all the groups is the lowest on our average score. But look at how great these kids are doing in peer interaction. Maybe through peer interaction we can build up some language. Let's think about ways where we could really help these kids talk more, interact more, and have meaningful, deep exchanges that focuses on the language that we need. We also see these guys are great with their counting in small numbers, but we might need to look at some other aspects of readiness, especially in phonological awareness, to make these things happen. So you can have this graph for your very own using your Ready, Set, K data entry sheet. So every teacher will get an Excel spreadsheet with the Ready, Set, K data. You get to enter the student's name, their ID number, their ethnicity, their gender, their economic disadvantage status, if you have it. Many teachers don't, and we are able to get this data from central office. So if you do not have access to it, do not break any laws, do not try to get access to it. We will fill that in. Also, their English language proficiency status, if they're an ELL student or not, and where they were the year prior to pre-K. And the definitions for these are in your binder, so you would have it with you. So if they attended an ISD pre-K in your district, if they were at home with a relative, if they went to a child care center the year prior, or a Head Start center the year prior. All of this information is in drop-down so that you don't have to do it. You enter the student's name, and you can cut and paste this from a student list. Now keep in mind this field is first and last name together, so if you have that ready in your already in a field, that can be entered in. These are the drop-down menus we spoke of, so you will have a choice. You don't have to guess. Use one of the categories that's in this field. And page 13 through 15 of the Kindergarten Readiness Guide has more information on how to complete the data. I want to go back just for a moment and talk about the other tabs that are at the bottom of the screen. The Data Entry tab is where you enter all your data. Focus, Get Ready, Set, and Go lists all the children in those categories that you can group in small groups for each and every competencies. So when you look at the response to intervention piece for each competency, these would be your small groups in order to do the response to intervention. In addition, after your class graphs are individual student reports that you can print and give to parents that auto-populate with the child's name, so you're able to use that and give that to parents if you would like. So now we're talking about partnering with parents. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that in terms of what we do to help parents and help them understand about kindergarten readiness. Each child comes with an adult. We don't get the choice of having them just walk in the door solo, although sometimes that might be easier. What we have are parents who care about their kids, families who care about their kids. And I want you just to reflect, for parents out there, what was the best interaction you've had as a parent with a teacher? And as a teacher, what was your best interaction with a parent? Just take a moment. We know that parents and children have a positive relationship in the most part, but we want to do everything we can to keep that relation positive. So we have the School Readiness Parent Guide, which is very positive, which has interactions and fun things to do with kids that are low cost or no cost that we can give to parents, especially when their kids need help getting ready. If you remember the Continuum of Progress scale, we have Focus, Get Ready, Set, and Go. And really, that focus piece is for all of us to take a look and help a child. And that's what the School Readiness Guide is. The nice thing about Ready, Set, K is it frames it in that positive language of everybody taking a closer look. The Parent Guide can also be used as homework for parents and kids. The guide is tailored to what teachers want for the School Readiness Guide as it pairs to Ready, Set, K. So there are activities and questioning and a checklist so parents can know the intentional purpose of those activities. We're at the end of our time today. If you have any questions, please contact me, Laura Koenig, at E3 Alliance. It's lkoenig@e3alliance.org, and my phone number is 512-223-7247. Thank you so much, and we're excited that you will be working on Ready, Set, K this year.